I only looked at people that had 10 friends in common with me. So basically, I went to his friend list, I organized them, I scrolled down a while until I saw people that had like between 10 and 20 friends in common with me. And I would basically friend those people. Okay. I would add those people and send them a message.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
What's up, podcaster? It's your host, Adam A. Adams. This is the podcast on podcasting. Our goal is to make sure that you are a better podcaster, that you have more success with your podcast. You make more money. Obviously, that's important to make more money and to make more impact with your show. On the last couple solo episodes, one of them, we talked about what a one sheet was and how important it is to be booked on other people's podcasts because of what it can do for your show and your business and your authority in your space. Then only the last solo episode, 2 episodes ago, because we go every other interview episode. And the opposite is a solo like today, where it's just me pouring into you. And I promised you on the last episode, the last solo episode, I promised you that I was going to be talking a little bit about a special way that I was able to get a guest on my podcast. And you could use this also to get on other people's podcasts. It's just a special, unique thing. And I'm going to share it with you. And I think most people listening, probably you, are going to have some value where they're actually going to use this and actually going to get value out of this and actually be grateful that they listened to this episode. So without further ado, let me share this story. There was this guy. Now, I used to have a real estate podcast. Many of you already know I sold that podcast almost 3 years ago. At the beginning of the pandemic, I ended up selling that podcast, and it was a very fun experience to sell. The person who owns it and runs it now has even more success than I had because we did a great job. Anyway, the point is, when I had that podcast, there was this thing in the very beginning where I had this discomfort, nerves around inviting anyone to my show. Man, I didn't have a listener yet. It's like, how can I add value to some big name when I don't have a listener? Like, what are they going to get out of it? It felt like nothing. And so I had been thinking of some creative ideas. Now, the podcast that I sold was called Creative Real Estate Podcast, meaning that I always found a way to do a real estate deal. If I didn't have money, I could still buy real estate. If I didn't have time, I could still buy real estate. If the seller needed to jump through these hoops, I could find a way to creatively buy that real estate. And this is a creative way to get somebody on your show or to get yourself booked on their show. And what I ended up doing is I found a person that was like Dream 100. If there was a Dream 1, he would be my Dream 1. And I reached out to him and I was like, no, I lied. I got ahead of myself. I haven't reached out to him yet. I did a sneaky, tricky, creative thing. So I found him on Facebook. He's very, very famous, but not so famous as he doesn't have a personalized Facebook. He's one of those people that is just super well known, but he has a Facebook account and about pretty close to 5,000 friends, which is your max all the time. He had his profile open. Well, I went to the profile. I searched for him. I tried to learn a little bit about him, stuff that I could share. And this idea came to me that I was going to friend a bunch of his friends that he and I had in common. And there's some friends that you have like 1 or 2 friends in common. And there's some friends that you have 10 or 20. And then there's friends that you have like 100, 200, 300, 400 friends in common, depending on where you are and how many friends you have. I had close to 5,000. He had close to 5,000. And so there were a bunch of people that he and I had like 400 people in common with. And those aren't the people that I wanted to add. I didn't want to add to the people that we had 400 in common. I only looked at people that had 10 friends in common with me. So basically, I went to his friend list, I organized them, I scrolled down a while until I saw people that had like between 10 and 20 friends in common with me. And I would basically friend those people. Okay. I would add those people and send them a message. Hey, it looks like you're in real estate. I just started a real estate podcast and I wanted to know if you know anybody that should be on my show. It's a new show. Let me know if you know any really good guests. Now, sneakily, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know the word to say, but it was kind of neat because I think it was kind of under the radar, under the ground. I knew for a fact that they were friends with this guy. And I was hoping that they would suggest that guy because it built a whole bunch of ammunition for me for the day that I finally reached out to that guy. And I said, hey, man, I'm friending you because these 4 people told me that I need to have you on my podcast. And I name dropped the 4 people that are his friends. And I'm saying, because yeah, sure, I reached out to like 50 of them, but only like 4 or 5 people said specifically that I need to have this guy on my podcast. A lot of them were like, oh, you can have me. I'd be a great guest. But anyway, 4 or 5 people said, you've got to have this guy. So I finally reached out to him and I said, man, all of these people say that you need to come on my podcast. That's why I'm reaching out to you, is just to see if we can make that happen. And because of like how sneaky it was and how like interesting it was, it worked. It worked out. And I could do it both ways. I could be like, do you know anybody who has a real estate podcast? I'm looking to guest. Excuse me, the hiccup still. Do you know anybody who has a real estate podcast? Because I'm looking to be a guest on somebody who has a great real estate podcast. And if that guy or that gal that you are hoping for has a podcast in your genre, whatever your genre is, and these people, a couple of people that are currently friends with them say, oh man, this guy has an amazing podcast. This guy has an amazing podcast. And they keep saying that. Then you can reach out to that guy or that gal and you can say, hey, these 3 people are telling me that I need to come on your show. Now, I don't know what that looks like or if you're even looking for guests, but if there's a topic that you and I can figure out, I'd like to do what they're telling us. And it's just a sneaky way to get booked on a podcast or to get a top rated guest on your podcast. And I told you this was going to be a short episode. I really appreciate you listening. Thank you for taking the time. Keep listening to other episodes because I want you to have the most success possible. And I think that helps as we learn and grow and develop and practice the things that we're learning. And by practice, I have a very short story. I call it the bird church story. You're going to learn something here. And there was a whole bunch of birds that didn't fly and they went to bird church. And at bird church, they learned how to fly. And then at the end of the church, it let out and they all walked home. It's not what I want you to do. I don't want you to walk home. You've learned how to fly, man. You've learned how to grow your podcast. I've taught you how to get some great guest on your show. I've taught you how to potentially be a guest on somebody's great show. And as you're looking through this, navigating this, figuring this out, I don't want you to just let this information go in one ear and out the other and you walk home from bird church after learning how to fly. I want you to do the stuff, implement the stuff. And that's what I want you to leave this episode with is I've got to do 2 things. I've got to keep listening to Adam and I've got to keep implementing the stuff that I'm learning because it's good shit and it's going to help me get to the level that I want to be. I'll see you on the next episode. Oh, hey, because 3 of my clients came to me recently looking to find a way to have their podcast make them money instead of cost them money. We put together a resource for some of our clients, and I want to give it to you as well. It's something that did actually seem to help because one of them is now making $2,600 a month. Another one's $4,500 a month. And the third is making between $5,000 and $10,000 each month. And so it's been a resource that's been incredibly valuable to them. It's our sponsor sheet template. It's a template of a sponsor sheet, and it gives you something that you can hand to potential sponsors and hopefully also be making $2,600, $4,500, or between $5,000 and $10,000 regularly each month with your podcast. So this has been a contributing factor to helping all 3 of those clients turn their podcast into an additional income stream for them. And the way that you can find it is just going to our website, growyourshow.com, but put in /templates, growyourshow.com/templates. And then you can actually download that template and others that could be valuable to your podcasting experience. I'll see you on the next episode.